Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Dalton from the Petrol List, and let's get right to it. Max Verstappen was awarded 20 seconds and penalties during the Mexican Grand Prix. Now, per usual, I'm gonna hit the rewind button for just about 30 seconds because this is extremely significant. The FIA literally has the power to change the course of history in Formula One and motorsports in general, but it's a huge development. There's the Turn 12 fiasco in the Austin Grand Prix or U.S. Grand Prix, whatever they're calling it, and a lot of people thought that Max Verstappen should have gotten the penalty then. I didn't comment on it because I never really thought that the FIA was going to do anything about it, but lo and behold, 20 seconds and penalties. Now, let's pretend the FIA was doing this a while back, right? So 2021, and this isn't me relitigating Lewis Hamilton's championship or not championship. That ship has sailed. That's in the past. But say they started to penalize Max Verstappen for doing that thing that he does where he hits the apex and then he keeps going wide, pushing his opponent off the track. If they were penalizing for that, there is a chance, and I know I'm going to get some comments, but there's a chance that Lewis Hamilton would have won his 8th championship, maybe even before Brazil, and he probably would have left Formula One. That would have left George Russell as the main driver for Mercedes, and Sainz would have ended up staying at Ferrari. And there's a good possibility, it's a coin toss for next year. Sainz could have won a championship next year. Or maybe Sainz would have been someone who went over to Mercedes to get himself a primary driver's seat. But history, as we know, would have been much, much different. Now, most likely, Mick Schumacher would have filled in as the second Mercedes driver after George Russell, and they would have been waiting for Kimi Antonelli to be ready. And Max Verstappen would have 2 championships and going on his 3rd instead of 3rd, going on 4th. So these FIA decisions are extremely important, and it was a major milestone to see that they actually gave Max Verstappen 20 seconds in penalties. Now, we'll cover why that happened a little bit later, but let's just get into it. Lap 1, Sainz in pole position and Verstappen in second. Both got an excellent start, but Verstappen's start was just a little bit better, and he had the momentum going into turn 1, and he gained the inside advantage. He did push Sainz off the track. Sainz left the track. He inadvertently gained a position, but he immediately gave that position back and got right back into the attack. And arguably, that's something that Norris probably should have done in Austin, and we possibly would have not had him lose. But this is Sainz we're talking about. Sainz makes decisions. As a matter of fact, later on in the race, he told his pit, he was like, I want to stay out for another lap and gain some tire advantage. He just made that decision, and pure driving, I would say that Sainz and Norris are probably about equal if we're talking about pure skill, but Sainz, I believe, is a little bit better at strategery than Norris, and I think Sainz is a little bit more decisive, and that really bodes well for Sainz trying to win races. The other thing is Sainz isn't afraid to get his elbows out during that lap 1. Sainz, he stayed strong on the outside line. Lando may have kind of given up and accepted that pass, but Sainz didn't, and eventually he would go on to win the race, and that was a pivotal moment for that. So also lap 1, even before turn 1, Yuki Tsunoda and Albon, they made contact. I watched that a few times, and I don't see any way either of them could have backed out of that. Very unfortunate. The stewards gave that, no further investigation. It was a racing incident. And I got to hand it to George Russell. He had an excellent race. He was driving beautifully. But by lap 9, Lewis Hamilton had passed George Russell. And by lap 9, Sainz, who was able to hold on to Verstappen after Verstappen had passed, by lap 9, Sainz did go ahead and make the pass, and he made that pass stick. Max really put up an aggressive yet clean fight against that pass that Sainz executed, but at the end of the day, the Ferrari just had a little bit too much grip and a little bit too much speed for Max to really do anything about that. Now, lap 10, Norris tries to capitalize on the battle that was taking place ahead of him between Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, and that loss of speed that happens when two cars are fighting. And he gets a decent opportunity to pass, but Verstappen pushes Norris off the track. Now, I think this is like the second time, and this is early in the race. This is the second time that Verstappen has done this. And then shortly thereafter, Verstappen pushes Norris off again. And this one, I think, was just far too blatant. And this is when the stewards got involved and they assigned the 20 seconds worth of penalties. And I gotta be frank, it was clear during that pass that Max Verstappen had no intent of making that corner. That move was specifically designed to push his championship rival off of the track and make sure that he didn't have a chance to collect more points on him. Now, that did backfire. This is ultimately where the stewards, like I said, got involved. They gave him 10 seconds for forcing another driver off the track and 10 seconds for gaining an advantage off the track. Now, just after this, George Russell actually got a beautiful overtake on Lewis Hamilton. It was composed and aggressive, and try as I may. No, not try as I may. No. George Russell, it was just a beautiful drive. It was a beautiful pass, and you can't fault him on it. And then shortly after that, Alonso did join the ranks of the DNFs. Those DNFs were just stacking up. A couple crashes, like I said. Alonso had troubles with the car. It was just, the Mexican GP is always quite dramatic, and this one was no less. Lap 18, Perez raises more questions about his future in F1 than he answers, right? So he can't make the pass stick against a junior driver in a slower car, and even takes on some damage. Kind of makes me think, in a perfect world, Lawson would stay with VCarb, and Perez honestly would leave Red Bull at the end of the season, and then Sainz would take that second seat at Red Bull. I mean, Sainz deserves to be in a top 3 car. McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. He deserves to be with one of those teams. I mean, if Red Bull is not considering Sainz at the end of the season, they have huge problems. And that would, if he went to one of those top teams, it would leave that seat open for Colapinto, who is driving phenomenally. And I think if that had happened, if all of that takes place next year, I think all would be right in Formula One. We'll see. And then the next lap, Perez even struggled against Lance Stroll. I'll just leave that there. Make of it what you will. Lap 27, Verstappen serves his life sentence. I mean, that was a super long penalty. That felt like something out of, iRacing or something. Okay, lap 63, Leclerc goes off and he loses his second place finish to Norris. And then lap 66, Lewis Hamilton at this point has been working on George Russell for, I want to say, like 10 laps, and that hard work finally comes to fruition, and he just wore George Russell down. Finally gets a beautiful pass. The Mercedes were fighting, but they were fighting respectfully this time. And honestly, I think they'd have been in a much better position at the end of this year had that been the mentality this whole time, and let the fastest driver, which, to be fair, on any given race day could have been either of them, depending on who had the better setup, if it was organic, of course, and who was simply having the better day. George Russell is very quick, but I gotta say, Lewis Hamilton proved that he still has it against a very, very quick George Russell. And might I add that both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton made those Mercedes look much, much better than they actually are. And then I got to throw this in there. Colapinto and Lawson battle it out, flirting with disaster and proving why they both deserve seats next year. Again, if Red Bull is not looking at Carlos Sainz for the 2025 season, then there is something absolutely wrong. I think at this point in time, I think that Perez is actually performing maybe a little bit worse than Daniel Ricciardo was when they cut him. But, Perez has a lot more, money coming into the team. So that's a very hard decision. And it didn't matter how good or bad Perez is doing. The fanfare at the Mexican GP was just crazy. Crazy good. Some really, really great fans out there. So that's it. The Mexican GP, a phenomenal race. I want to say, maybe one of the best races of the season. Definitely one of the best drives of Carlos Sainz's career. And the fact that he can mentally stay in there, even though he knows that Ferrari is going to let him go at the end of the year, that is pure intestinal fortitude. That is a strong mindset. And I'm telling you, he will be such an asset for any team that he goes with. And let me give an honorable mention to the Haas drivers finishing in the points. Hulkenberg and K-Mag, both phenomenal drivers. Unfortunately, they got saddled with the Haas cars for quite a long time. And now that Haas is finishing in the points, man, I would love to see K-Mag just get another season. But, that's not happening. I think K-Mag is actually going to be looking for a seat by the end of the season. The grid needs a couple of more teams on it. I really do believe that, or they're just gonna have to either create like a second league or something, because drivers are staying active for longer and they're still driving extremely well. You've got Hamilton and Alonso, who are just still very strong and deserve to be there. You've got Ricciardo, who I think that's an open, question mark. I think he still deserves to be there. And then you've got these young drivers like Bierman, Lawson, Colapinto, who also really should be in F1 seats as well. So I think Formula One has got to expand somehow. But anyway, the Mexican GP was a very, very satisfying race, and it gave a lot of looks from a lot of different drivers and a lot of teams. The rest of the season is going to be exciting. 2025 is going to be absolute fire. And, then we got 2026. Anyway, that's it. That's the review of the Mexican GP. I have been Dalton. This has been the Petrolist, and you have been great. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and, of course, subscribe. I'll talk to you later. I'm out.